We're just out for a quick ride today to check out a couple spots, take a little tour. This time of year is very busy for me at work, so I'm not getting out as much to do rides and film videos. I'll probably get a lot more of that later on towards the fall.
At the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow. Don't worry, that's a motto. So we keep moving along.
So here we are. So there were a couple spots I was just going to show you. There's one that I might have shown you a while ago, a few years ago, but I'm going to go back there again just to kind of recap. But yeah, we're going to look at a couple of places as we cruise down, and we might head down into Beaver Valley afterwards, through Rockland and all that. And then we'll let you know how it goes. So if you're coming south on 12 from the shorelines of Georgian Bay, you will see about 10 miles down, just after Scotch Mountain, a little landmark here that kind of shows some history about this place. So I'm going to show you that. Okay, so we've pulled over at this spot, and I just wanted to kind of show you my new moto bag here. And this is my Chemimoto motor bag. Hopefully you can see it okay in this camera view. And this is for when you don't want to have the big ice cream box on the back. You don't need to carry a whole lot of stuff. You just need a little place maybe to keep a cool drink and maybe a little bit of camera equipment, and you really don't need a lot of stuff. And it also is a cooler bag. I mean, it's got the stretchy bungees on it so that you could put more on. Like if you really wanted to go, you could probably stick a little tent under there or something if you wanted. But it's nice. It's just keeps a cool drink in there for me. Just a few things, but it's not so big and bulky looking, so it kind of looks cooler on the bike, I think. So I just have that as my temporary, just short trip top case, I guess you could call it. So it's Chemimoto. I saw someone do a video review on it a while ago. So there you go. See, I got some watermelon juice here, and I'm gonna take a little sip. And it's nice and cold, so it's keeping it cold. I wouldn't suggest keeping your beer in there unless you're not going to be driving anymore. But anyway, that's pretty cool. So anyway, let's go have a look at this little historical cenotaph, I guess you would call it. Coming up here. So this cenotaph is about this old church on the corner. Now it says it was erected in 1887, and I guess there's like all the original people on it. So it doesn't say anything about the real historical thing, which I found was a lot more interesting. And that's if you walk along this wall, and I'm going to try my best to show you what I'm talking about here. This stone wall that goes along here, and it goes for, well, I'd say maybe half a kilometer or so. It goes across two properties, and you can see these made out of these old limestone slabs. Now, I had the privilege of doing some work in the house here on this property, and so I found out from the owners what they knew about this old wall, because it's always been here as long as I remember, and how old it was, and who built it, and how long ago, and all that kind of thing. And apparently the best we could find out is the story is these are not necessarily fieldstone, or at least most of it's not. Because originally you drive by and you think, oh, they were just stone picking off the fields over the years, and they just decided to make a wall. But really, these large, flat, sort of slatey type limestone, I guess, or whatever you call it, it's flat, other than there is a few round rocks in there. But the large flat ones all came from the foundation of the old farmhouse, which you probably can't see it too well in the video unless you have a really large screen. It's back there. And when they were digging the foundation for the farmhouse, probably, over 100 years ago, maybe between 100 and 150 years ago, it was all this flat limestone underneath, and so they dug that all out of the foundation to make the basement for this house. And apparently most of the stone came from digging the foundations for the house. Although it's kind of debatable, because there's an awful lot of stone here, like a lot more than you would need for the foundation of one house, but they said most of it came from there. But all the round stones you can see in this old wall are probably from field stones, from picking the fields, rock picking the fields over the years as well. You can tell how old it is by the way it's kind of dilapidated and it's kind of fallen over now. But this is technically an ancient ruin, and it goes all the way along the fields. I don't know if you could see how it goes all the way up here. And I've always found it quite interesting, so I thought I would share that with you. So it's on Grey Road 12 as you're coming south. If you do come to take a look, don't go on the property. This is somebody's property. But you could maybe stop on the side of the road, just have a quick look at this field. Or at this fieldstone fence, I guess you would call it. So it's really quite cool the way they've made that. And who knows, maybe they were thinking it was a good block for the drifting snow in the winter too. Just my theory, I mean, a use that it could be. But yeah, that's what they did with it. And it goes right across a whole 100-acre property in the front. So isn't that interesting? And just in case you were wondering about the 1867 church, since I got off topic with the fieldstone fence there, or wall, that's it today. Obviously it's well fixed up. It's probably, I don't think it's a church anymore. I think it's somebody's home now, because that's commonly done these days. And yeah, that's it right there. So that home was actually a church that was originally built in 1867. How about that, eh? Alright, so I'm going to move on now, and we're going to show you another place of interest, which is just up the road from here. Actually, nobody coming. Can't believe it. Picked a good day for traffic. Alright. So if you continue further down this road, you'll come to a place where there's a very large, steep hill. And this steep hill is called Scotch Mountain. And it doesn't look so much of a challenge in the summer, but in the winter this could be a pretty treacherous hill if it gets icy or really bad road conditions. So we're going to go up Scotch Mountain. Actually, I don't think this is Scotch Mountain. I think I've already passed Scotch Mountain. My bad. No, we're past Scotch Mountain now. But you'll come up to this place where there's always stuff out on the end of the yard for sale. And you're going to see this little driveway here, and it's called the Stories Cemetery. And hopefully I can do this. Yeah, me, the big off-road guy. And you head up here, and hopefully I can get turned around up here. So you come right up in here, and this here is a cemetery, of course, but I mean, I've already taken you to cemeteries. The very last video was a cemetery visit, but those cemeteries are relatively young, especially compared to this place. So, of all the cemeteries I've been to around here, because I don't know, for some strange reason I like visiting them, I can say, see if I can pull this off. I'm trying to find a way to park without dropping the bike. that this is one of the oldest pioneer cemeteries I've seen in this area, considering that the first settlers started coming here in the 1850s, early 1850s, and there's people here that died in the 1850s. So I mean, it just, other than an Indian cemetery, Native American Indian or Native cemetery, this is as old as it gets for this area. So let's walk around and check them out. So let's look for some of the older ones though, and show you that this was an original pioneer cemetery. So let's walk around. And now if I can even make out some of the stones, because they are pretty old and they have not been maintained much. Let's see if I can make this out. Alright, I'm seeing a 1906 here. So this is still, even this one's new, but you can tell it's original. Because, like I say, it hasn't been touched since it was put there. Nobody's fixed it up. And then we got some real old ones here. These are, you know, they're old when they're limestone tablets like that. Because usually sometimes they'll gather these up and they'll put them in a separate place. But these ones here are so old, I mean, you can't even read them without getting some sort of you know, brass rubbing or something on them. Maybe you can find out that way. But it's definitely, it's all original. This wasn't redone. This has been sitting here since the day they died, and it was probably 1800s. This is a newer one. But there's some real old ones here. This is the original Pioneer Cemetery here. Again, I can't even make out the date on most of these. Okay, November 14th, 1866. It says here, aged, and then it's been buried. So you can't read the rest of it. It's actually been buried with time, or it sunk into the earth one way or the other. But yeah, there's one there, I think it says 1866, that died 1866 in November. Age, it looks like 13. And like, wow, talk about real history here. This one here, again, maybe I should have brought my glasses, maybe I could have read it a little better, but it's really hard to make out what's written on there. Trying to find one that you can see a little better. But yeah, stones that are so old, unreadable. But it's not saying if it was the same. Well, it's all 1 year at the bottom of it. I wonder if the entire family died. They never say why they died. The only stone that says why they died or how they died was the Donnelly grave, and that was taken up. Now, check this out. You think people didn't live as long back in the day. But this one here, Janet, his wife, I guess, Janet. I can't read the first one, but he died in 1876. And his wife, Janet, died in 1891 here at 102 years old. In 1891. She was born in the 1700s, 1789. Like colonial times, she was born. Incredible. So, yeah, this stone was erected in 1876, and then she lived quite a few years after that, to an age of 102. And back in those days, when they had scarlet fever and typhoid and everything else going on, she must have been made of good strong bones. This is a really well-made stone. This one you can still read pretty good. Another one died in November. A lot of them died in November here. Must have been a bad winter or bad year or something. I'm not sure. It looks like 39 years old. November 2086. Or 1863. Sorry, November 20, 1863. Died at 39 years of age. That was kind of normal for those days. Can you imagine coming up here at midnight on Halloween, hanging out? Oh, that'd be something else. Camping out, just you alone in a tent. There'd be some history, all right. Yep, some pretty old graves here. This one here, Jane, wife of Thomas Mackey, of something or other, died April 20th, so that was a spring death, in 1855. So it's kind of a sad and disappointing story, because that means they barely showed up here. They just started clearing land and trying to make their first farm, build the first house. You know, they were probably living in a lean-to or something, or a wagon, until that first house could get built. And it looks like she didn't make it past the first winter, or maybe the first couple of winters. So she only made it a few years. It was a hard life here. It was a very, very, very hard life. I mean, imagine the roughest camping you do and living like that. Doesn't matter the weather, doesn't matter the time of year. We're not talking middle of summer like this. We're talking middle of winter, November. You know, those are rough times to be just living outside and roughing it. No hydro, no nothing. So anyway, very interesting old cemetery. There's lots of little nooks and crannies to explore with little stones. These look like a little bit later on. That looks like, so from here is what I would say is the, I can just aim that properly. From here is what I'd say is the oldest part of the cemetery. That's where most of them were first placed, and then it kind of spread out from here. It's gonna make a nice picture. I'm gonna take a shot.